I apologize in advance as this video is quite long. I also ran out of paint, so I had to reorder more supplies from our good friends at Splash Paints. As with any build, I start by removing all the flash and mold lines. This car, being an old kit, had excessive flash and mold lines. And I had already removed it all from the driver's side. I figured I'd save you the boredom of watching me sand on plastic for about an hour. But you could still see all the mold lines on the passenger side, running up the fender and up the A-pillar. And on this kit, the mold lines ran down through the body line, so I'm using my razor saw to clean them out. It is the perfect size to fit down inside. And I am pressing ever so lightly here. I'm just letting the weight of the blade do all the pressure. I did the doors the same way. I'm just using the back of an X-Acto blade here just to kind of give myself a rough guide to follow. And again, I'm not really doing any cutting here. I'm just using that to scrape away the mold line down inside the body line. And once that mold line is gone, I'll just use that same blade to go back and deepen the body line to clean everything up. Now on to cleaning up the passenger side. And you could still see the line, as it is technically an imperfection in the plastic, but as long as it doesn't catch your fingernail, it won't show up under paint. And in the last build, I showed you how I use a pin vise to act as a makeshift coping saw. I only do that when I need to remove a lot of material and I want it done rather quickly. For precision work, I still use an X-Acto. And here I want precision because I want them cut at an angle of about 45 degrees and I want them cut straight. Once I have the bulk of it removed and that hole opened up, I just use the blade to go back in and kind of scrape it and shave it into shape. Doing this will leave a bit of a fuzzy edge everywhere that you cut. So to clean all that up and smooth it back out, I like to use Tamiya Extra Thin. This stuff is a solvent and it works by melting plastic together. That is why it works so well for what it does. It also is very effective at smoothing out any nasty rough edges. This is what it will look like when you're all done with this process. And I mentioned in the unboxing that I have heard all the horror stories about this rear bonnet not fitting. I believe those stories. This is about all the fitting I will do because I still plan to have this displayed open. I do not care about the fit because it will not be closed for me. Before moving on to primer, I'll just use my air gun to blow off any dust or dog hair. Those of you with a keen eye may notice I got some new paint stands. I'm not entirely sure how well I like these things yet. They do not hold parts very sturdy. And for the primer, I'm just using good old-fashioned Tamiya rattle can, the white primer. I used to do a lot of resin, and this is the only primer I know that will reliably stick to resin. And right about here I'm realizing the fumes and overspray are not being extracted. I don't like that. And another good thing about this primer, as you see there, I'm touching that with my bare hands. If you spray it light, it dries almost instantly. I'm thinking maybe that filter is clogged, so I just ripped that out of there real quick. And I find a piece of plastic that likes to hold the parts, kind of clogging the vent. Ignore all that gray hair, don't look there. And I couldn't really tell from my point of view, but right here on film, I could see the paint and fumes being extracted the way they're supposed to be. And after a bit of thinking, I decided maybe I do want that rib on it to fit a little bit better. So I start doing some looking around. These pins are really holding me up. I thought about shaving them down to make them thinner or notching that fender well to make room for it. But nope, I decided to read ahead in the instructions and see what they're supposed to do. That said, remove protrusions on both sides. So let's do that. Now it just fits perfectly. It's still got a little bit of side to side wobble, but there's no hideous gaps anymore. This bonnet fits. No adjustment needed. Now I do apologize, I had forgot to hit the record button whenever I was filling up these pinholes, but I'm going to show you how I do it on some of the front pinholes. I will fill the hole, then I will just knead it down into there to get any of the air bubbles out. Then I will take an X-Acto blade with a flat edge on it, and I will just scrape the excess off. It does not take a lot of pressure. You do not want to gouge or scrape any paint up. You just want to remove any excess of the putty. Any of you that have ever done any sheetrock work in your life will be all too familiar with how this works. And we got a few more holes on the bottom to fill up. These are the alignment pins for the radiator and the radiator support. There is enough body contour to hold that in place without the pin, so I just cut them off when I fill the holes. Now, as these holes are on a flat surface and they could easily be sanded, I just fill them with super glue. And I prefer the super glue type of gel for this because it's really thick and it tends to stay right where you put it. It won't run everywhere and make a mess. Now, you've seen me do this in the past. I like to use the tube thingy on that nozzle and put a drop exactly where I want it. No sense in wasting that stuff where it doesn't need to be. Now this will look like I'm doing a lot of sanding. That little Revlon nail file is old and worn out, so it does take a lot of sanding. So much sanding, in fact, that I just cut a lot of it out. And there is one perfectly filled hole on a perfectly flat panel. As far as painting goes, I like to do a lot of coats, but very light coats. And I always start off with the deeper recesses and the places that'll be hard to reach, just to ensure that they get even coverage. And I go in and out of camera here just because I got to do all kinds of contorting just to get under that wing. And I get kind of bored between coats waiting for paint to dry. This is also a reason why I don't like this thing. It's kind of hard to paint on. Now I cut out a lot of this, maybe 4 or 5 coats. I didn't start recording it again until I had to refill my brush. But again, it's paint, you're not missing much, and it's boring. And here, I just pull out an old instruction sheet just to show you how light I'm actually spraying this paint. That is full blast. I have a very heavy finger, and in the past, I had tried to get even coverage and do it all with just one coat. So I adjust my airbrush back to where just barely any paint is coming out, and I can't really retrain myself, so I'm just adjusting my airbrush. Well, that looked familiar. I did not realize I had looped this section through twice. I do apologize. Now during the decal process, I go in and out of frame again. I do apologize. I point my phone down through a ring light, and a ring light's giving me a weird glare, especially on the wet surface from the wet decals. So I just kind of move out of the way of the light a little bit, and in doing so I go off frame a bit. And unlike the F430 kit from Fujimi, the good people at Tamiya put little recesses in the body, so I know exactly where to put these decals. No measuring, no second guesses, it's just perfect. After I repeat this for the other side, I will just lightly go over them with some microsol, then I will let that dry, then we'll move on to the clear. I'm still not really sure how well I like these things. I decided to modify this just to suit my needs a little bit better. This thing just didn't seem to really hold my paint sticks sturdy enough, so I just drilled them holes all the way through. Now them paint sticks are very sturdy. And you may have noticed in the actual painting video that I had not painted the mirrors. I forgot. I do that. Sometimes I'll show off a complete model and I haven't put the mirrors on yet. It's just, I don't know, I forget. I figured I'd actually show you how I like to mix my clear as I mix thinner in with it. Now I know that the bowl on my paintbrush holds 5 milliliters, so I had 3 milliliters of clear. It's 2 parts of 1.5 just because it doesn't really suck all the way up to 3 in these pipettes. So that is in a different pipette, another 1 milliliter of the activator, hardener, whatever you call that stuff. And in a third pipette, I add 1 milliliter of thinner. And that is just regular old lacquer thinner. A big jug of it from a hardware store. Now you give that a good mix like your favorite martini. I probably shake that for a good minute and a half maybe. Perfection. And I will do a light coat just to seal in those decals, and at the decals only. Now I'm pointing at the lack of paint fumes because I can see from my point of view that that extractor is actually working again. Now we do a light coat on the decals just because this is a 2K and it is very chemically hot and it will melt decals. So do a light coat, seal them in, let them dry, now go back and do your final paint. And just like the painting portion of this, I cut out a lot of me just spraying this clear because it is boring. And just like in the last build, I will add another half a milliliter thinner between every coat. The thinner this stuff is, the smoother it will lay out. And here you could see me point at the rear bumper a little bit. I was looking around because I have posters of this car in my hobby room because it is one of my favorite cars. In the rear bumper there is supposed to be these side markers or reflectors or something. Those are not replicated in this Tamiya kit. I am finishing up the very last of the clear now. By this point, that clear is about 60% thinner. It is very thin. Now from here, I'll just leave this down here for another 2 days to completely dry. I do thank you again for watching another video.